Okay, so you're thinking about a career as an economics lecturer. You picture yourself maybe up in front of a lecture hall with a cup of coffee that's gone cold, explaining monetary policy, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I mean, hey, that's definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
But as we're going to see in this RoleCatcher guide on becoming an economics lecturer, there's so much more to it than just lecturing.
Oh, absolutely. This guide really highlights, how multifaceted teaching the material. It's about like shaping the direction of your field, which can happen in some pretty interesting ways.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I thought was really interesting was how RoleCatcher mentions that economics lecturers are often involved in like university management functions.
Yeah, yeah.
So you could have a say in how the entire department's run, influencing the curriculum, maybe even getting funding for research.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really, really interesting because imagine like you're really passionate about a specific area of economics. Maybe it's behavioral economics or environmental economics, whatever it is.
Hmm.
As a lecturer, you're not just teaching those subjects. You could be advocating for them within the university, shaping the research agenda, even influencing what courses get funded, what kind of attention they get.
Right, right.
You can have a real impact.
That's a level of impact that you don't always think about when you think about just teaching.
Yeah.
You're kind of like an entrepreneur within the university, in a way.
Absolutely. And that entrepreneurial spirit's so important because economics lecturers, they're often at the forefront of their field. So, you're not just teaching established theories, you're engaging with cutting-edge research. You're contributing to the evolution of thought, and you're preparing students to deal with real-world challenges.
Totally. It's about connecting the dots between the theory and what's actually happening, in the world, which is something I know you talk about a lot. So it's not just about being like an expert in your field. It's about being a leader, an innovator, a mentor, all those things. But you're also not expected to just magically acquire those skills overnight, which is why this guide also goes into the specific abilities you'll need to develop to really excel in the role. And let me tell you, some of them might surprise you. Like when you think about an economics lecturer, social perceptiveness isn't exactly the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
But this RoleCatcher guide, it really stresses how important it is to be able to, as they put it, read a room full of students.
And it makes sense when you think about it because you're not just up there giving a speech,
Yeah.
You're trying to create this dynamic learning environment where you're picking up on all those little cues. Are they engaged? Are they lost? Are they about to like launch into a full-blown debate?
Right.
And being able to read those cues, that's how you adapt your approach in the moment. Make sure everyone feels heard.
And it's not just about reading the room, is it? RoleCatcher also points to judgment and decision-making as a key skill. And okay, yeah, economics is all about making decisions, but we're not talking about, like, setting interest rates here.
No, not at all.
It's about those judgment calls that directly impact your students, right?
Exactly. Think of it this way.
Yeah.
You have a student, brilliant kid, tons of potential, but they totally bomb a midterm. Do you just assume they didn't study? Or do you, maybe reach out, offer extra help? Because you get the sense that maybe something else is going on.
Yeah.
These aren't just hypotheticals. They're the real dilemmas that economics lecturers face all the time.
And those decisions, they have a ripple effect. It's not just about that one student. It's about, like, setting the tone for the whole class.
Absolutely.
It makes me think of this one professor I had. It was a notoriously tough class, tons of reading, really complex theories.
Yeah.
And this professor, he had this reputation for being like tough but fair. But then one semester, he completely changed the format of his final exam.
Oh, wow.
Instead of the usual essays, problem sets, all that, he made it a group project. And the focus was on, actually applying economic principles to a real-world issue.
Interesting.
And everyone was freaking out because it was so unexpected. But you know what? It ended up being one of the best learning experiences I had in college.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
See, that's a perfect example of how an economics lecturer can make a judgment call that on the surface might seem kind of unconventional, but it ends up benefiting the students in a really profound way. Like by challenging the status quo, by encouraging collaboration, he created this learning experience that was both memorable and impactful.
Totally. And it wasn't even just about the content itself. It was about how he framed the whole thing. Like he said something like, in the real world, you'll rarely have all the answers, and you're going to have to rely on other people to solve problems.
Exactly. And that's the kind of insight that you just don't get from a textbook, right?
Right.
It speaks to the importance of those less tangible skills, empathy, adaptability, being able to connect with students on a human level.
Right, right. And speaking of going beyond the textbook, this RoleCatcher guide, it doesn't just focus on the day-to-day of being a lecturer. It also lays out this whole career path, which I think is really interesting for anyone who's serious about, making academia their thing.
Yeah, it does. It paints a picture of what's possible. You start as an assistant lecturer, work your way up to lecturer, then senior lecturer, maybe even professor someday.
Right, like climbing this academic ladder.
Yeah.
And RoleCatcher basically gives you the blueprint, but there was something interesting I noticed in the examples they give of people at different stages of this career path. It seems like they almost always mention having some kind of industry certification. In fact, one profile even said they had a name of real industry certification at like almost every level. So I'm curious, in the academic world, how much weight do those certifications really carry?
That's a really good question, and it's something that I think a lot of aspiring academics, they don't even think about. Because, yeah, a doctorate, that's usually the minimum requirement for lecturing, right? But these industry certifications, they can give you a real edge, especially as you're moving up that ladder.
So it's kind of like a way to stand out, to show that you're not just like book smart, but that you're also in tune with what's actually happening out there in the real world of economics?
Exactly. Imagine you're on a hiring committee, and you've got two candidates, both equally qualified on paper. One has the traditional academic credentials, the other has those, plus a few certifications that show they've gone above and beyond to stay current with industry practices, cutting-edge tools, all of that. Who are you more likely to take a chance on?
I see your point. It's like anyone can talk about economic theory, but these certifications, they prove you can actually walk the walk, right?
Exactly. It's about demonstrating real-world competency, which is so valuable, especially for someone who wants to be taken seriously as a researcher or even, move into a leadership position within the university.
So it's not about just padding your resume. It's about actually like investing in your professional development.
Right.
Showing employers you're serious about staying ahead of the curve.
And, it's not just about impressing employers either. A lot of times these certifications, they involve really diving deep into specific niches within economics. So you're not just broadening your skill set, you're developing expertise in areas that genuinely interest you.
So it's about like aligning your passions with your career goals, which I think is something a lot of our listeners can relate to.
Absolutely. And that actually brings us to another point that this RoleCatcher guide emphasizes: the importance of research and publication. Because, at the end of the day, to really make a mark as an economics lecturer, you have to contribute to the advancement of knowledge in your field.
Right, and that's where having an online presence comes in. RoleCatcher actually suggests building a personal website to showcase your research and publications.
Yeah.
It's like having your own little corner of the internet where you can like highlight all your academic work.
It's becoming more and more essential these days, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's like if you don't exist online, do you even exist in academia these days? But in all seriousness, it's a way to take control of your narrative, make your work easily accessible to potential employers, collaborators, even future students.
And let's not forget, it's a fantastic platform to highlight those industry certifications.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about those like less obvious skills you need to develop, the impact those industry certifications can have, the importance of building a strong research portfolio and an online presence. But as you're picturing yourself climbing that academic ladder, there's one more thing I want to touch on, and it's something that RoleCatcher kind of hints at but doesn't really explore. How do you actually stand out in a sea of applicants?
You're so right. You can have the most perfectly crafted resume in the world, but in a field like economics, which is all about collaboration and dialogue, it's how you engage with the broader academic community that really sets you apart. And that's where networking becomes absolutely crucial.
So we're talking about going beyond just like showing up at a conference every now and then.
Exactly. Think of every interaction as a chance to learn something new or to spark an idea. Maybe you're presenting a paper and someone in the audience, they challenge one of your assumptions, and boom, that sends you down a whole new research path.
Right?
Or maybe you're just grabbing coffee with another economist and they mention a project that they're working on, and it just happens to perfectly align with your interests.
Yeah.
Those kinds of connections, you can't plan for them, but they can really change the game.
It's like building your own personal brain trust in a way.
Exactly.
But, for someone who's just starting out, it can be kind of intimidating to even know where to start with networking.
It's true, but it doesn't have to be this big, scary thing. Start by just reaching out to people whose work you admire. I mean, send a thoughtful email, mention a specific paper that resonated with you or a project, something like that. You might be surprised how many people are open to chatting, especially if they see that you're genuinely interested and you're eager to learn.
Yeah, that's great advice because it's about building those relationships authentically, right? Not just like going in with an agenda or just trying to collect business cards.
Exactly. And remember, networking isn't just about advancing your own career,
Yeah.
you know? It's about contributing to the advancement of your field as a whole by engaging with other people, sharing your own ideas, being open to different perspectives. That's how you become a real part of the academic community.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into, what it really takes to be an economics lecturer. We went beyond the usual job description stuff, uncovered some of the hidden skills you need to succeed, explored the impact of industry certifications, talked about the power of building a strong research portfolio and having a good online presence. But I think what really stands out is this. Being successful in this field, it's not just about individual achievement. It's about active participation, collaboration, and a genuine passion for pushing the boundaries of economic thought.